Welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. I'm Kendra.
And I'm Katie. We are so glad that you're with us here today.
Today we have a really special guest, someone who understands both real estate and life inside a medical marriage. We're talking with our friend Amanda Barron, a Nashville-based realtor who helps physicians and their families not only find a house, but find their community.
Amanda has been married to her physician spouse for 30 years this year, which feels like such a gift for all of us to learn from. Together, they are raising two young men, and she brings this beautiful mix of experience as a former math teacher, a stay-at-home mom for a decade, and now a realtor who walks alongside medical families through big transitions.
I had the pleasure of meeting Amanda in person a few years ago in Nashville, and I remember walking away thinking she is exactly the kind of person you want on your team.
In this episode, we are talking about how your home and your neighborhood shape your everyday experience and what to think about when you're moving, choosing a realtor, or starting over in a new city as a physician family.
So whether you are just starting out or you are several moves in and wondering how to make this next one feel more like home, we think you are going to feel both seen and encouraged by Amanda's perspective.
So settle in, let's take a deep breath, and jump into this conversation with realtor and physician spouse Amanda Barron.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for joining us today. We're so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here.
Before we started recording, we heard a great story from Amanda that we've asked her to repeat. Kind of, you heard her intro. You know that she's got a wonderful, beautiful family. But we were asking her a little bit about her husband and their roots and their history. So Amanda, if you want to pick up from the very beginning, way back when.
Yeah, so happy to. We grew up in Houston, and my husband and I actually met in elementary school. And we have grown up just best of friends, our parents' best of friends. And so we spent many holidays together, and we actually did not start dating until college. So we went to two separate colleges, and I think, the whole cliche of absence makes the heart grow fonder. Since I can't really remember my life without him, it was kind of like, I kind of miss him now that I don't get to see him all that often. And so that is when we started dating, and it's history since.
I love that. I love a good... It's like the cute, neat story that's just, from elementary school. That's not too many people have that, except for on this call, we've got two of the three of us.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Who have. I know, it's Katie and Amanda. I met mine way, way, way later.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's a fun story.
I've got to know then, was your husband always interested in medicine? Did you always attach those two things together? Like, this is him and he's going to be a doctor someday?
No, not at all. He was not thinking medicine for quite some time, and initially thought he was either going to do culinary school or forestry. So it was really not on the radar. And then he decided to do an internship one summer in Maine for forestry. Loved it, but also found out this is not what I want to do, and pivoted, and medicine it was.
Wow. Does he do most of the cooking at home?
He is amazing at cooking. My kids prefer his cooking far more over mine. I do probably do most of it just because I am home. I'm like the spaghetti kind of cook, and thankfully my kids eat it, but he much better, and he doesn't need a recipe. So he's a very good cook.
Love that. I know my husband started dabbling with cooking. So on Sunday, that's his night. It's like, I find it so relaxing. I'm like, well, it's not really relaxing for Katie. Is Talon.
Oh,
is Talon a pretty good cook?
Talon loves to cook. And whenever he's home before dinner, he's always in there. He's jumping in. He loves it. And
yeah.
I would love to offset that task any day.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Maybe that's the new thing we should start. We don't cook anymore, none of us.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, Katie and I started this project this summer basically to recap her final year of her husband's residency training and all of the exciting things that come with that.
Yeah.
And one of those things is relocations. So, Katie, why don't you fill in Amanda and our listeners kind of where you are in that process? Because you've got some updates there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So We are currently undecided what we will do next,
Mhm,
but we know
mhm.
where we will be, which is in our same area. But our housing market is kind of peculiar because it's high demand because there are a lot of housing options, but also I think quality isn't as great, like not a lot of new builds, older homes. And so it feels really expensive for maybe
Mhm.
not what we're like wanting to buy. And
Yeah,
that is also true for renting. So the renting market's really competitive because there aren't a lot of at least like single home rentals, and the cost of living is just really high.
that's it.
So I'm not sure what Nashville's like or what your experience is like with relocating, but what would your advice be for this type of situation?
Yeah, so most of my business, 85% of it is actually from out of state, relocating to the Nashville area or helping those leaving Nashville going somewhere. And it's tough. I think relocating's hard no matter if it's local or it's cross country. And then when you throw into the mix kids or being married to medicine, it's tough. I think there's a lot of facets to take into account. So the type of market you're in, it is kind of an interesting market that I feel like nationally we're in. And to be
Mm.
honest, a lot of it is very unpredictable and not what we have seen historically. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, do I really know what I'm talking about? Because the advice I just gave, that didn't happen. And so it does
Mm.
kind of make it tricky, even from a buying or renting side of things. But I think the advice that I would give is what is the overall long-term goal? So that's the first thing I always ask my clients is your overall long-term goal to stay. And if it's questionable, then maybe purchasing right then isn't quite what you want to do. And then some of them are looking at a passive income, to
Yeah.
potentially buy. And then maybe this isn't their forever home and they'll do a move up buy, or again, maybe they're going to be leaving. But especially if they're buying close to the medical centers, it ends up being very lucrative because no matter what that market looks like, good or bad, you still have these physicians that have to come and start their job, whether it's training, after training. And so it is a very lucrative business to get into. And so, from a buyer's perspective, I think, having to look at that and see what your overall goal is and what those multifaceted that I talked about, as far as like if you've got kids in school and financially, do the numbers make sense? And so, I think at the end of the day, only you are able to answer if those numbers actually make sense. And I tell people you're with the right realtor if they listen to you and your needs and aren't pushing you one way or another.
Mhm. Yeah, I was going to ask more questions of
Mhm.
spotting a great realtor.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are kind of your green lights or your red flags there?
So I really think great communication on both sides is huge, to listen to your needs, your concerns, maybe a past experience went well, what didn't, and then what your top priorities are. So whether it's schools, it's your commute, your budget. So I think you need somebody that's listening to all of that. But I also think somebody that is a little bit more well versed in not just real estate. So, especially if you are going to an area that you're not familiar with, that they can offer you other resources to help you learn about the area, help you learn about the communities. Because I do feel like, especially being married to a physician, your community and the community that you are going to be a part of, or maybe the community you're going to be building, is just as important as your actual house. You can find a house anywhere, but those other things I feel like really can make or break where you are moving to.
Totally. I love that. So, what are some examples of things that you connect your clients with to help them with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So it's very case by case on what they need. So a prime example would be if somebody is moving to the area and they both are working and they need a nanny. I
Yeah.
try to keep that within the community. So if I know a physician family is leaving and they've got a nanny and that nanny needs
Mhm.
another family, I try to keep it within our little medical community. And so it's really nice if you know somebody that has those connections. A lot of times it's two medical families that they don't need a full-time nanny, but they split it. So you can help outside of just that. And then connections within the schools. if somebody maybe has a special needs kiddo, being able to connect them with various programs that the area has. I've done that quite a bit. And then what's really nice is if you have a local group, they can really answer a lot of the questions for you. So outside of that real estate perspective, when they're like, hey, we're moving to the area, we're going to be moving in June. And what are your thoughts on school A, B, and C? And then since my kids are older, it's really great because then the community can chime in and say, I've got kids that go to all of those schools, and here's what we love, and here's the things that maybe we wished we would have known. And so a lot of those additional resources and information can really impact where you're going to be moving.
We have to highlight something that Amanda has done in her community of Nashville. Tell us a little bit about kind of the group that you've established there.
Yeah. So for those of you, I know, listening to Katie and Kendra, knowing about the Alliance and various different programs that are out there for you to be able to connect within your community, not on just a national level, but a state level and then a local level. We do not have something locally. And so I just decided we need this. I need this, and started a Facebook page. And at first it was just me coming to all of the get togethers. And I thought, okay, I just need to keep doing it. And it eventually grew. And it's such a special community. I actually met with them this morning, and it has been a lifeline, not only for me, but I think a lot of the other spouses in the area. And so we meet for things that are really small, play dates, different events throughout the year, coffees, book clubs, and it's filled my cup up just as much. So I have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that you start something like that, Katie, because I know where you're at, there isn't an alliance and there isn't a large, but we know that there's physicians who work there. And so therefore there are families that are there. And so I've heard lots of people say that they'd really like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but giving yourself permission to start small and to just do it if that's something that's on your heart. Not suggesting that's on your heart, Katie.
No, but once you start building it, Katie, what I have found is when people start to continuously come to the events, then they want to be a part of it. So then they'll lead stuff. I have somebody else that leads the book club. And so whatever it might be, maybe it's a walking group, but if it's near and dear to their heart, they'll kind of lead it. And then you can kind of sprinkle in the things that are interesting to you that you want to lead. And so you'll find that if you build it, they will come, which sounds so cliche, but it's really true.
For sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's something I've always admired about you, Amanda, is that you saw a need and you just like, well, I'll just do something about it. And those are my kind of people.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And what I love about the community too is we are all so different, but make such a big impact. So where we are in this medical journey, we've got some med students all the way to I'm the granny of the group with older kids. And so some in training, some not. And just we all have something to share and to offer each other. And it's really been great.
Yeah. So if you live in Nashville, make sure you reach out to Amanda to figure out how you can get plugged in there.
Yeah. I always love a good excuse to get together. So
yeah, so do I.
What's the group called, Amanda?
Nashville Physician Spouses. We made it super easy.
Well, I kind of wanted to ask you about your path to realting. What led you to pursue becoming a realtor and specifically build a business around supporting medical families?
Yeah, it was honestly not what I initially had set out to do. But when we moved here, we didn't have the best experience. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so we didn't have the greatest experience, but we just kind of rolled with it. And then I had a friend in real estate. So over time, just basically was like, you should try this. And I said, okay, I'll try it. And it was, the first year pretty slow. I wasn't really sure what I was doing and how to get the business going and transitioning from I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And so trying to get the business up and running and have people look at me as a realtor instead of just stay-at-home mom. And so over time, it slowly grew. And then organically, it just started to evolve helping med spouses. And honestly, I think it was, I had been there, I had done that. I saw what I was lacking in our relocation. And so just tried to fill in those gaps and solve problems that I was seeing over and over again. And that was also kind of how the local group started, because everybody moving here was like, we're lonely. I don't have any friends. And
Yeah.
so that's when we just kind of slowly started to get together. And then the word would spread that I helped them. And then they would pass it on to somebody they knew moving to the area. And it just kind of organically grew that way. And then for me, honestly, that community aspect is number one priority. And then real estate is kind of second to that. And it just kind of fell into place.
Mm. I bet you your clients can feel that from you too, right? Like
I
your
hope
intention is to
so.
build community. And so that there's this trust there and probably a budding friendship as well.
Yes,
That
I
is
will
amazing.
say most of them, we have become very good friends, and I see them very regularly in our group. And so I'm very, very thankful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I wish every physician spouse had that. I really do. Like,
I know. That was what I needed so badly when we moved here and was very lonely and
yes.
very lost. So I agree.
For any of our listeners who are hearing this and thinking
Yeah.
that they have a desire to do that, Amanda's laid out some really simple ways for
Mhm.
how you can take that first step. And it is reaching out to one other physician spouse and maybe saying, I'm lonely. Are
Mhm.
you lonely?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do something about this. And then let's start inviting other people that we come across to join us and make it a really inclusive, supportive, and welcoming environment that people want to be there. And you've really captured the magic there in Nashville. So
Yeah.
again, I applaud you.
Thank you. And it's there. They will start coming, and then you guys can start helping each other if somebody is sick or has a new baby, and start taking meals. You'll be so surprised how the need is there, and you will have such great involvement.
Oh, I have more questions about
Yeah.
realting from the buyer side of the
Huh?
equation. What helps people get the most out of working with a realtor? Like this would be our first time home buying if we do
Good.
or whenever we do. And I would love to know, yes, how do I make the most of this relationship?
The first time home buyers are my absolute favorite. Like, I love the education side of things. I was telling Kendra, previous life, many moons ago, I was a high school math teacher before I was a stay at home mom, and then before real estate. And so I love the education side of things. And so the biggest thing is that you find somebody, one, that you feel extremely comfortable with, open communication, and it's a true partnership. Like, it really is, because it's already a stressful situation. But if you're with the right person, it's so much fun. Like, it's just so much fun, and you get to learn so much, and it's such an exciting time. It's, a really big purchase. Be proud of this purchase. And so I would say the biggest thing is the partnership, the open communication, and to really lean into each other, so that way you are understanding, how the process works, and you feel comfortable to ask questions. And then on the flip side, where they have the open communication to really find out exactly what it is that you need. So for example, I feel like having the right questions to figure out what your lifestyle is. So it's not just I want a 3-bedroom, I want a 2-bath, but what is your lifestyle? What do you guys like to do as a family? Are you really outdoorsy? Do you want to walk to places? Do you have a dog? And dog parks and trails are really important, because that again will make where you move. And, if you are wanting some sort of community as opposed to being out on land, like just having those open communications. And you'll have like a gut feeling when you start interviewing real estate agents. And I tell people, interview them and see, if you guys gel, and if they're really listening to you and asking you those type of questions. And then vice versa, how are they reacting to your questions? Because you need to make sure that you feel comfortable asking all your questions as well.
When you say interviewing, it's like,
Yep.
can I take you out for coffee? Let's go have a small conversation. It's that kind of
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
invitation.
absolutely. And then you ask questions, and I tell people I'm always happy to kind of give you some questions to ask them. I give my clients questions to ask lenders, because not every lender is the same. So, knowing what to ask, and then are those answers what you feel good with? as well. And so ask them what their process looks like. How knowledgeable are they about the area? But then again, are they plugged into the medical community? Do they have to be? No, but I really think it's super helpful because they get it. They understand the lifestyle. They could potentially plug you into the community or what it is that you are needing from the community, and not an automatic, oh, I've got these physician clients. Let's really go look at some of these expensive homes, because that's not, we all know that's not what it's all about. So I really think it's important that you are able to paint that lifestyle picture for them and they're open to really listening to it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many horror stories I've heard of somebody who works as a realtor who maybe isn't familiar with physicians other than, oh, physicians must have really deep pockets, and,
Mhm.
show them things that are beyond their budget or don't believe that this is the budget that they have. And so I think there really is a lot of value in working with somebody who understands the entire
Mhm.
spectrum of
Mhm.
medical training, whether you're a medical student or a resident or those first years as attending.
Right.
They all have different needs.
They do. And I also think, like I said, that open communication, because what are your goals? Now being done with training, maybe you want to get out of debt. Maybe you are wanting to
Mhm.
put money aside for retirement that you haven't had a chance to do. You want to save for whatever, again, you weren't able to do. And so it's not just about paying for this expensive home. You've got a lot of things that you haven't been able to do. And so making sure that they understand what those goals look like for your family.
Do you ever have clients come to you and kind of indicate that their goals are maybe not aligned with home buying, and you say, based on what you're saying, I'm not sure if this is the right time for you? Like, would you ever be honest in that, or how do you navigate that situation?
100%. So whenever I meet with clients, I sit down and again have all these questions and I ask them what their goals are, or if they are in training. I want to know what their specialty is, because if they are here for less than 4 years, the numbers don't make sense in our
Mm.
particular market for them to be able to actually build equity. And I tell them that. Now, if they are planning to, again, like I said, keep it as a rental and have some passive income later on, maybe, but we sit down and we actually look at those together. But I have told many that want to buy, I'm like, this doesn't make sense for you. Sometimes they still buy and that's their choice, but I want to sleep good at night. So
Uh,
100% I have told them. And that's what I also love about working with like really good professionals. Same with lenders. I have some great lenders that are like, listen, I can't beat that rate. You need to go over to company, XYZ. They're going to offer you a better rate. And so having those people that have your best interest at heart that you're working with is super important.
for sure.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
Katie, I have a question for you
For
because,
me.
your husband. Yeah, I got a question for you. And then Amanda can jump in also. But I'm wondering how you're feeling because now you're about 6 months away. And this just speaks to who Katie is and her character. She's living in a great house right now
Mhm.
that somebody has made available to residents. And she's like, it's not fair to keep this
Mm,
because we're not going to be in residency any longer. So another resident family is going to get this great deal on this house
amazing.
to rent. And that means Katie's going to be looking
Yeah.
for a new place.
Yeah.
I know you said it kind of feels intimidating. Are you excited about the process at all? Does it seem daunting? Feeling
Yeah.
about
Good question.
relocating again?
Yeah.
I feel daunted because of the lack of options that do
Mm,
feel exciting. So part of that is time of year, I think.
yeah.
We've looked for new rentals come spring and they're all opening up, right? It's kind of a weird time to look into at least renting,
Mm,
because that's kind of where we're leaning toward. My husband's first initial contract is 1 year. And we're
mm,
like, well, let's just play the year. Um, get extra training with certain areas of his family medicine practice, and then we'll continue to see how we feel. And we still feel really good about being in the area, but we're unsure about our long
right.
term here. Especially our oldest is he'll be creeping into middle school in the
Mhm.
next 3 years, and we're just unsure. Um, so sometimes I feel discouraged when I like pop on his Zillow. I'm like, there's literally not an option that really fits what we're wanting, what we
Mhm.
need. Our kids go to school in a different city. We are trying to debate if we want to live closer, like a halfway point. Um, so that would increase my spouse's commute time, but we don't know how much of a commute we want. And um, it all feels kind of tricky right
Yeah.
now.
We've got a lot. I always tell people moving in itself is daunting, but then when you throw in kids and schools, and it would be one thing if it was just the two of you and you just had to make the decisions for that. And when you have so many unknowns, the biggest advice I give people is I always think choosing the path that's less stressful is the way
Yeah.
to go for that time. And also, none of your decisions are permanent. So if you guys decide to rent for a year and then he loves his job and you've got a longer contract, then you can do all those what ifs as well. But it's kind of like
Mhm.
take it day by day and just give yourself grace because you've got a lot of decisions you've got to make.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't quite expecting it because we are staying in the same area. Like
Sure.
relocating to a new state that we've never lived in before, that feels like, of course, that is pretty stressful. But
Sure.
um, it's still the same stress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to toss around what's our priority, what feels right, um, and then what's open, what's available. It's also kind of the hurry up and wait kind of time
Yep.
in our
Yep.
timeline as well.
And I still think you're doing the right time, looking at Zillow, just kind of seeing what's out there, putting feelers out. So the nice thing is you have time, but I think you're doing it right by just playing day by day and seeing what is available, watching the market, watching the numbers.
Yeah. So our timeline, our spouse will be starting his job post training in September.
Yeah.
What's like your advice timeline to start looking at housing, start working with realtor,
I think
things like
now
that?
is a great time to find the right realtor. That
Okay.
gives you time to meet with them, interview them, and you don't have to initially sign anything to chat with them. And again, I think it really boils down to if you end up renting versus buying. So, speaking for our market, a lot of people haven't said whether they're going to renew their lease yet. A lot of them are still
Yeah.
kind of trying to figure that out. So, a lot of the homes that will be available, we don't even know yet because they haven't
Dang.
renewed. Maybe they're on the fence if they're going to buy as opposed to renew their lease. So I think if y'all go the rental route, you've got some time because maybe they just haven't decided yet what they're going to do. But, a realtor, some will help with rentals and have the insider on other physician families that are going to be leaving, and maybe you'll have some opportunities there. So it's worth the conversations now to plant the seed if they know that and they can already let those landlords or property managers know, hey, I have already found this great family that can now just move in once you move out. And so it may be super seamless and easy, as far as if you plant that seed now. And then for buying, I still think it's totally fine to find the right realtor and kind of learn about the communities or things that are on your goals list and priority list. And I don't know your market, but with our market, typically once you find a house from start to finish, meaning a contract to close, is anywhere between 30 to 60 days. So then you can kind of work backwards from there to make sure you don't feel extra stressed by having to pack up super, quick, but you've got time to kind of plan everything, budget for everything. So I think starting the process now with the conversations at least is where I would go. And then probably I would say by April, people will be starting to put in their notice and letting people know if they're going to be renewing their lease or not. Because right around match day is when those landlords and property management companies start reaching out to me because they have found out that their tenants aren't going to be renewing. And so it'd be
Dang.
really great if you just had a super seamless where you could just take over that lease.
Yeah, for sure. Um, do you help people into rentals as well?
Yes and no, and I say that
Okay.
loosely. So when I have people moving from California or Chicago, New York, the rental market there is very different than here. And usually what would happen is a real estate agent does the same thing they would do to be buying a house in those cities, and then they get compensated for whatever a month's rent or something like that would be. Here in the Nashville market, landlords and property management companies don't want to pay us. And so they would rather just work directly with the tenant. And so I tell people, I am happy to help you. It's just, I honestly may be doing a disservice. So if you and I called a number on Zillow for a rental, they're going to call you far sooner than they're going to call me back. So a
Okay.
lot of times I'll have people that will do their own due diligence and calling the landlord or the homeowner and go look at properties, but then they'll ask me like my thoughts or, hey, is this in a flood zone? And so I'm always happy to help, but it's honestly what I have found very regional with realtors and how it works in the rental market.
So, and then the people that you're helping into a rental, how do they compensate you? I'm just curious, like, how would I, make
They-
like a
y-
partnership there?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And again, I think it's very situational. Honestly, I haven't charged, if I'm being totally honest. And then thankfully, we've stayed in contact after they rent and they come to like my community get togethers or our events. And then they eventually buy, or if they end up leaving Nashville, then I help them with, connecting them with an agent in another state. And then I am compensated that way by the other agent. So I feel like it's always come back. And so I just help wherever needed or wherever I can.
I see. Okay.
But it's
That's
very different. So
wonderful.
I would make sure you ask,
Yeah.
where you are. I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction there.
Right. No, it's great to know that, that may be an option because I would love like a
Mhm.
rental broker to kind of help
Yeah.
us who
Yeah.
knows more of the rentals available. But
And they're there
um,
they're there for sure.
okay,
Uh-huh.
perfect.
This may be an odd question, but I'm thinking back to like the realtors that I know.
Yeah.
Would you recommend working with someone who is already your friend or a family member who's somewhat connected with you? Because I know, especially in this population of, people who are uninformed about the buying process because
Yeah.
this is they're a first-time home buyer and maybe they have a well-meaning cousin or an uncle or their best friend
Yeah.
is a realtor. What tips do you have for maybe
It's
setting
good
close relationships?
I don't want to say always, but I have found mixing business with pleasure, it just, it doesn't work. And I think for multiple reasons, maybe neither of you feel comfortable to discuss some hard conversations, or a lot of times I feel like maybe they're not doing what you were hoping they would do, or maybe they run their business a little bit different than your past experience. And so it ends up being really hard conversations, or sometimes because you are friends, advantage can be taken, one way or another, of maybe not wanting to pay somebody, or them, oh, she's my friend. She's not going to care if I cancel today, and on either side. And so I have found it does not work well. Have there been situations where it works? Yes. And then I think I told you guys, my clients become really great friends and we stay really great friends. And then years later, I help them again when they leave. And so I don't want to say lines can't ever get blurred, but I think from the start of that transaction, it really helps if maybe you don't have that personal relationship. And I don't want to say always. So,
Yeah, we'll speak in general terms, but I
Yeah.
think that is a good rule of thumb to keep your relationships outside of this
Yeah.
particular transaction so that like when you call Amanda, I know that Amanda is going to be looking out for my best interest and I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to see Amanda at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Or it's like that relationship needs to be unbiased.
And
then you can be friends afterwards.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if something doesn't go right, then what? Is it worth
Yeah.
losing a friendship, or like you said, making the Christmas dinner super uncomfortable? And so, because it does continue after that.
Sure does. Thank you. All right, Katie, any last burning
guess-
questions for
Final wisdom. What's one thing that you want all physician spouses or medical families listening to remember as they navigate transitions, relocations, or this medical life in general?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I think the biggest thing is when you are navigating this transition, especially like a move or a relocation, that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel kind of lost or lonely. And it does get better. And give yourself grace, give yourself time. It sounds really long, but I tell people give yourself 6 months to a year. Does it typically take that long? No. But if you kind of set that expectation up, because you got a lot of things going on outside of just moving, but maybe a new job, these new schedules, schools, and that loneliness and community will come if you just kind of embrace that. And so that's the biggest thing that I tell them is it's okay to feel that way. I think more than not, most of us have felt that way, and just to give yourself some grace going through that.
Yeah, that's spot on. I'm excited to glean some more wisdom from you personally, but where would you like to connect with our listeners, or where can they follow your work, or even listen to your podcast?
Yeah, I love to connect. And so there's a lot of different ways. I am on Instagram at Amanda Barron Realtor. Feel free to reach out and message me there. I do have a website as well where you can connect with me. Or, like you mentioned, Katie, Behind the White Coat is a podcast that I have. So, any of those ways, feel free to reach out. And I love questions and connecting and just being a resource for people.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm
Oh,
excited for you, Katie. And, I appreciate what both of you guys are doing with your podcast and just supporting physician spouses out there. So thank you.
no, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And she's the real deal. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thank you so much. Huge shout out to Amanda for joining us today. I'm honestly a little jealous of the medical community in Nashville who get to work so closely with Amanda. Her energy and the way that she pours so much into supporting families through these big transitions is truly inspiring.
Absolutely. Amanda has some incredible resources to make things smoother. You can grab her physician relocation guide and her physician moving checklist, and also her rent versus buy guide to help you navigate the big decisions ahead. We'll include those in the show notes.
Yes, she has so many great resources for you to check out. We hope you do so. Thank you so much for listening today.
We'll see you next time.